Hello, everyone, and welcome to the League One Lowdown podcast here on the Deck Network. Myself, Jeremy Johnson, as always, here with Seb Jones for the review show. Seb, how are you?
I'm very good, Jamie. Thank you very much. Yes, good to be back. Obviously, slightly smaller schedule than normal given the international break, but still lots happening in the games that we're going off.
Yeah, there's 4 games less than usual, so only 8 games to discuss, but plenty of goals across them. We're going to talk, rather than 6, we're going to talk about 5 in detail, and you'll find out why we're doing one less a little bit later on in the show, but you won't be shortchanged. Don't worry about that. We're going to start with a 6-goal thriller. It's Plymouth Argyle. They beat Stockport County 4-2, and I think if you read that off the face of it, Plymouth, who were really struggling and had a really poor start to the season, and the Stockport side, who on the face of it, on the results, have had a good start to the season. It is a bit of a surprise, but I think in the context of the last couple of weeks, perhaps not as much. Stockport have lessened their performance levels over the past week or two, and that now has transpired into results. There's been a bit of a lag on that translating from performances to results, but it's caught up with them now as Plymouth really do impress, and that is, I guess, the first talking point in Plymouth get a really, really important victory and 4 goals as well. They look worthy of their 3 points.
Yeah, and that's now, I guess, two victories in a week for um, Plymouth. I think positive are starting to slowly sort of get in there really after a bit of a difficult start for Tom Cleverley's side. But yeah, the result itself really good after beating Cheltenham in the midweek in the EFL Trophy. It depends how sort of seriously you see that as a victory for them. But actually, this result on Saturday against Stockport County really good, really sort of strong. 4 different goal scorers, 2 large grabbing. Sort of first goal for the club as well. And yeah, Ibrahim for me, the sort of the pick of the bunch in terms of the strike from distance,
Mm.
rifled one really from about 25 yards, and almost had sort of another one of very similar ilk a little bit later on. So yeah, impressive dominant display by Plymouth, and they'll be pleased after what's been sort of a difficult start to the season so far. But yeah, impressive really, I think, from Plymouth, and things obviously are starting to gel a bit more in terms of the window's now closed, the players that are in have been together for a bit of time, and it's starting to stick, which I think will please Tom Cleverley quite a lot.
Yeah, I think the important bit not just being that they've won, and we obviously they won in midweek. You mentioned that Tolaj scored both of the goals against Cheltenham. This one is first in the league for Plymouth, so he's got 3 in 2 games. Had a really positive start to life in green down at Argyle, and so he's hitting good form. All 4 of the front 4, if you like, the 2 wingers, Watson, Mumba, and Ibrahim, you mentioned as well, either got a goal or assist. So all of those attacking players are firing at the right time, and they'll be able to pick up, and that's just what they needed, especially after that 4-0 defeat against Cardiff last weekend, where they looked absolutely abject and devoid of ideas. That they've now in a week turned it around and probably maybe reset a little bit and gone, we can't afford to do that again.
Yeah.
And they've managed to come out against a Stockport side who, despite what I said at the very top in terms of their lessened performance levels over the past couple of weeks, are still a strong team in this division and have done well results wise so far. So it's a great victory for Plymouth. We mentioned Tolaj's first League One goal. There were some interesting talking points as well from it. Kyle Walton really unlucky with his own goal, the first one that sort of set the game off. He got a goal in the right net right at the very end, the consolation goal. That one you mentioned, Ibrahim's goal. Caleb Watt scored a really nice goal as well outside the box, curling it into the far corner. But I think the goal that perhaps will be talked about the most is the penalty. Oliver Norwood scored it to bring it back to 2-1 before the game really got away from them for Stockport, and it was won by Nathan Lowe. And I wondered what your point of view on this one was, and I think it's something we're going to talk about a bit later on because it was very, very similar to the penalty that Lincoln City had in their game against Wigan with Towler taken down by, I think it was Sadie. There is a real clamping down on holding in the box, and if people haven't seen it, the ball comes, I think it's a corner, and it comes into the back post, and Nathan Lowe and the Plymouth defender are sort of pushing and tugging each
Yeah.
other. Lowe goes down, penalties awarded. And the issue, I think, I wonder what your view on it is, that the decision isn't the issue, the rule is the issue, that this clamping down on holding in the box has gone too far.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent. I guess also one thing to note is that the ball was nowhere near Nathan Lowe at that point, so he was sort of further towards the far post, where the ball was just coming from the corner was more towards the penalty spot area, more sort of the 6 yard area. So actually, it's not as though Lowe was looking to attack the ball. And when I first saw sort of the incident, I was trying to look at replaying it in terms of where the ball came in terms of who was pushing and shoving it in that area where the ball would come in. But actually, it was just slightly further out in terms of Lowe, who was sort of impeded and on the floor. And I see what you mean in terms of the sort of the rule in terms of getting stricter, but I think it's been needed. I think for too long, I think defenders, particularly from set pieces, have sort of been getting away with stuff too easily. So I agree in terms of the clamping down, and obviously we're just seeing a bit of an adjustment period. I think in terms of players still getting used to sort of this new clamping down in terms of holding from set pieces. So I do agree with it actually. I think yeah, like I said, some defenders have been sort of caught out with it and been sort of overstepping the line too much. So rightly or wrongly, sort of it has been sort of seen as something that needs to be looked at and clamped down upon. Yeah, I think it is a bit harsh at the same time, because I think if you don't sort of use that physical contact to stop someone, then the base people got free running. Like how else do you block someone if they're coming in to run and head the ball or try and make contact with the ball without sort of using a bit of contact? But then it does sort of blur the lines in terms of how much contact is too much contact, which I guess is sort of up to the referee to decide. So yes, I agree with it, but I can see what he's saying in terms of it's a bit blurry. The lines are a bit blurry in terms of that will just favour the attacker then, because the defenders will know that they're not allowed to use too much contact. So
I mean,
yeah,
he's just jumped on the floor, hasn't he, Nathan Lowry? I mean, he obviously
yeah,
knows
yeah,
this the new rule that's in place, and he knows that if there's a little bit of contact and he goes down, he's going to get himself a penalty. So he's gone down, felt that little bit of contact, and the referees give it. And not to preempt ourselves or jump too far in advance, but the Lincoln one is, if anything, even worse because it is completely off the ball. Nathan Lowe,
yeah,
he wasn't going to get his head on it, but at least he's in the vicinity. Whereas the Lincoln one, it was Towler, I beg your pardon, who went down, who was on the complete other side of the box, nowhere near it, off the ball, gets taken down. That one a bit more of a push and a shove, but it's 50-50. It's sort of those 6 of one, half of the other situations where 6 months ago, no way it's a penalty, not even a free kick. And
yeah.
then now suddenly we're awarding these things for penalties. So I think that the rule probably it's just gone too far. That's my view on it. In that this is going to create a lot more penalties that really I don't think should be.
Yeah, I think that's right. And like I said, especially particularly at the start of the season where players are still getting used to it all. Yeah, I agree. And I guess it's evident in 2 games already so far in these early stages in just one match week. So yeah, I'm sure that we will continue to see that.
Yes, I think it's something that's going to carry on. Something that I hope will carry on. How's that for a segue for you,
That's nice.
Seb?
That.
Is Doncaster Rovers' a superb start to the season. Victory for them on Saturday, 3-1 against an previously unbeaten Bradford. It's their first defeat of the season, and it was all work done in the first half. The 45 minutes, Doncaster is the best they've looked all season. Goals from Molyneux, Gibson, he got an assist as well, and Billy Sharp to cap it off. And I hope you've seen Billy Sharp's celebration as taking the mick out of the pecked by the chickens that has been doing the rounds over recent weeks, running in front of the Bradford fans. And aside from a poor mistake from Timotei Lotatula in Doncaster goal, where he's just spilled the ball on the line for a tap in, it was a perfect first half, and Doncaster had all their work done, and it finished the same scoreline at full time as it was at half time, as Doncaster just defended and Bradford really struggled to create. The only shot on target they had was the 1 yard tapping, which had a 0.99 XG, I think it was. So really good work from Doncaster. And the question I'm going to put for you, I think you have to be the one to answer this one. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but are we sleeping on Doncaster as a potential challenger towards the top end, or at least the playoffs in the season? Because we all put them around mid-table, didn't we? Myself included at the start of the season.
Uh, I'm not sure. I'm reserving judgment, which is probably not the answer you wanted to hear at all. In terms of, don't get me wrong, that they absolutely have sort of start the season in great fashion in terms of their results, in terms of where they are in the league table at the minute, in terms of the performances on the whole have been really impressive. I'm not sure how long they can withstand that for, in terms of the old cliche, it's a 46 game season.
Mm.
When it does get to that sort of the winter period when the games are coming in thick and fast, when there will inevitably be some sort of injuries to some of the star players, I think that's when Doncaster will struggle. That's not to say, as I mentioned at the start, hasn't been sort of exceptional, really. Um, I think by the end of the season, mid-table will be about right, but I think the start of the season has been amazing for Doncaster in terms of the results that they've had, sitting second in the table behind Cardiff City. 5 wins from 7 league games so far this season. It's mightily impressive from Grant McCann's side, and I don't think anyone sort of expected them to be in the situation that they are. And we know it's still early stages, but I think it's really impressive and sign of intent definitely from Doncaster Rovers. But in terms of your actual question, whether they can sort of challenge, maybe I'm not so sure. Uh, but no doubt that the start to the season has been really good and really solid. And particularly for me at the weekend, it was the two sort of wide players that impressed, Gibson and Molyneux. Obviously, Gibson grabbing a goal and an assist, but the assist was sort of pinpoint perfect to the head of Molyneux, sort of coming in to get on the end of the ball
Yeah,
in, and then
arriving late into the box with a
yeah,
header. Yeah.
great timing and sort of great powerful head as well. And then Molyneux himself with the finish, sort of for Doncaster's first goal. That was, sorry, I did that in reverse order, but Doncaster's first goal was really nicely taken. Gibson, that was, sorry, really nicely taken, and sort of it looked as though it might have sort of squared it, but he took it upon himself and slotted really nice into the bottom corner. So yeah, for me, sort of those two players, and that will be key, I guess, going forward, is keeping those two fit, keeping those two scoring, and keeping them sort of adding and contributing to the goals for Doncaster Rovers, because they are two quality players, combined with Billy Sharp up top, who also obviously grabbed. That is an attacking force to be reckoned with, really, in the league. Dominant
Yeah,
sort of players, impressive, very skillful, and they all sort of have that bit of quality that will help Doncaster.
yeah, they're both superb on their day, Molyneux and Gibson. Molyneux had the first one, nodded in that cross, and then
Yes, yeah,
Gibson turned from provider to scorers. I mean, yeah, I think I was shouting to square it to Billy Sharp, who would have had a free rein at goal, but instead he went alone and slotted it into the bottom corner. But against his former team, and I remember it might have been the season before last, but we played, I think it was Carlisle, one of his other former teams, and he came out and scored a brace and played really well. And when he's got a point to prove, he's unstoppable. Um, you just wish that was translated into games not against his former teams.
yes,
Would be kind of helpful for the rest of the season. But on his day, he's super. Molyneux exactly the same on his day. This wasn't his best by any stretch of the imagination, but he got his goal, and it's kind of a
yeah,
good
yeah,
player who can score on an off day. But yeah, Gibson was superb, and Billy Sharp as well. Playing like he was 19 as opposed to 39. I saw someone say
yeah,
on Twitter, and I mean that's a nice way of summarising it, because he had all the energy in the world. He ran himself into the ground. He was absolutely knackered when he came off. I think about 10 minutes to go, he came off, and he'd run himself ragged throughout the game and caused real trouble to much bigger defenders. My concern at the start of the season was that he would struggle against centre halves who are much bigger. There's a lot of big centre halves in this division, but Sharp made Joe Wright in particular, who came off at half time, and Curtis Tilt, who I'm still shocked has got a League One move. I mean, I said it, I think, in this summer that I was surprised he'd managed to swindle a move into League One. Well, that has continued because he was
yeah,
awful in this game. He really was. He had Sharp running rings around him, and he just bullied defenders like he's always done throughout his career. Another one that on his days unbeatable, and the top scorer he is, isn't he, in
yeah.
EFL history. We're going to talk about a striker who's joined an elite club in terms of scoring 200 goals a little bit later on in the podcast. But yeah, Billy Sharp firing, it's always nice to see, and he's
Uh,
still got that bit where he takes the Mickey out of the away fans.
Yeah, and I guess before we move on, that the first defeat of the season for Bradford in the league, so that they'll be disappointed with that. And I think the fact that they only scored from a goalkeeper mistake will not necessarily worry them, but certainly be a concern in terms of not being able to grab any more goals, particularly in that second half. I credit to Doncaster for sort of defending that well, but that will concern them considering the good start
Mm.
they've had. But yeah, first fixed in for Bradford. But when you come up against a side like Doncaster that are on the form that they have, that they've got the momentum that they have, they've got the quality of players that they have, then it's sort of no surprise really that they fell to defeat in this one. So,
Mm.
so you need to use this to come again and not look too far. But I guess as well, it's just worth noting both of these sides sort of came up of the summer, and respectively they sit in second place and fifth place, which is I think just as sort of a general point, I think is really good at going
Mm.
and really impressive for two Yorkshire sides that have just got promoted up to the league over the summer.
Yeah, they have another Yorkshire derby in their next game at home to Huddersfield, and this was an off day for them. They just looked a bit off colour and they looked a bit shell shocked by that early goal and never quite recovered. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on next week. What we're going to do now is this week's fan feature brought to us by Sky Bet, and what we're going to talk about is the possibility of international breaks. We spoke at the very start of the podcast about the fact that we are 4 games lighter than usual due to the internationals. And a poll went out on our Twitter page asking what other League One fans think about the situation. I'll let you have a guess what the poll said. It was a simple yes or no. What do you reckon the consensus was? Should we or shouldn't we have international breaks?
I would imagine that the consensus was no.
And you'd be correct in that. It was 30% saying yes, we should, and 20% saying no, we shouldn't. And I fall myself on that no side of things. How about you, Seth?
See, I would say I'm on the other side. I think there should be an international break for League One clubs because I think actually more League One players are involved in nations than once was in terms of
Mm.
more clubs perhaps being yeah
People
it's
are
affecting
scouting sort of more further
people
afield now, aren't
exactly that, and it's affecting League One clubs more than it was in the past. And I remember last year there was a point of one of the international breaks. There was only 4 League One games going on in one sort of match week. This weekend, I know we've sort of not quite seen disruptions to that extent, but we have seen enough games that have been called off because of international call-ups. And as much as I agree in terms of international breaks are a good time to showcase League One and League Two football, I just fear I think that it would be better if all the football just took the international breaks off, so all the clubs sort of had a bit of a couple of weeks just to sort of re-energize themselves, really sort of take that break and see it as a mini pre-season, I guess. I think that would be quite beneficial, especially for the clubs that necessarily didn't have any players that were called up. They could use that as time on the training ground. So for me, I think League One should break for the international breaks for a very varying number of reasons. But I guess number one is that we are seeing more and more games postponed because of call-ups, and then that rearranged fixtures ends up being sort of a Tuesday night later down in the season where fixtures are already congested and quite cramped. So for me, I think international breaks should be a part of the League One fixture.
I think that's interesting. I think this one is obviously a much lighter one. We had some last season, you alluded to this, where we had a lot more games called off. My view on it is that I think it's just better just to carry on. And if games are postponed, then they get put on a Tuesday night, and that's fine. I don't think it should necessarily be a case of we're constantly just having weekends off, because you're going to end up with a lot more Tuesday nights. And the differences between League One and League Two, I guess, to expand the conversation, and the Championship, is that they have the extra games of the EFL Trophy, and they're already 3 Tuesday nights at the least, unless you get through obviously to the knockouts, that are already taken up. Whereas the Championship, they're able to take away these few Saturday games per season and just move them to a vacant Tuesday, where those vacant Tuesdays are less existent in League One. So I think it's just better on the overall that we try and make sure more games as possible are played during international breaks, and perhaps that involves lifting up the barrier a little bit, because it only takes 3 internationals, and they could all be under 21s, and they could all not play, and then you don't you don't have your game. Doncaster had two over this weekend. An extra one player gets called up as a backup, as an emergency perhaps, of an injury in the international squad, and suddenly our game's been called off because perhaps a player that isn't going to play anyway isn't available. So it becomes a bit of a slippery slope, and I think just lifting that barrier would make the whole thing a little bit more simple in terms of more games being played. But that's a bit of a separate debate, really. But even if there are 6 or 7 games getting called off during international breaks, I think I'd rather those 5 or 6 be played as opposed to none.
See, I get that, but I think then it favours and gives the advantage of the clubs that do play in the international break rather than those that have to play on a rearranged Tuesday night, like I say, in a congested fixture. So I think it's just easier for everyone to have sort of the same opportunities. So just calling off the international break fixtures in terms of league and EFL games that are due to be played. So just sort of have a blanket saying no EFL games during the international break. We'll just make time in the season for them to be played. So everyone plays their games at the same time rather than some playing it when they were meant to be, but the ones that then got postponed for a later date then sort of be for. I just think it's easier if we just sort of see them see the international breaks as a bit of a reset for the clubs and yeah, have a blanket sort of all EFL games are off. As nice as it is to sort of give the EFL a bit of a spotlight during the international breaks, I do feel as though you know, Premier League and Championship they have the international breaks. Why can't League One and League Two? I just feel it is a little bit unfair, particularly now, as I mentioned, right at the sort of the top of the discussion, in that now there's more international players in the EFL than there was probably 10 years ago. So actually, it affects more clubs now than it did in the past. And I think we've got to keep up with those times, and in doing so, we have to sort of use the international break as a reset and as a break for the clubs and fans, really, because football is a long season and having a couple of Saturdays out, I don't think is a bad thing at all.
Definitely true
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, so that it gives us the time to go Christmas shopping or to spend time with the
It's a
family
bit
on
early, bit
Saturdays.
early.
It's a bit early at the moment, but the international break in November, I'm sure people would rather it be called off. So yeah, I think calling them off I think would be better for everyone involved.
Fantastic. Well, very interesting discussion. If you joined in on the poll on Twitter, thank you very much. And if you haven't done, stick your thoughts in the comments. It'd be interested to see what our viewers, listeners think to that. And thank you to our sponsors, Sky Bet, for that. Our partners at Sky Bet.
This episode is brought to you by Sky Bet. You know that feeling? You back your striker to score, he's looking sharp, and then disaster. He pulls up with a tight hamstring, or worse, he's firing shots into the crowd rather than on the pitch. I've certainly seen that happen in my fair share of watching Barnsley at Oakwell. If the manager pulls him off, normally that would be your bet done and dusted, but not with Sky Bet Super Sub, because if your player goes off, your bet carries over to the player coming on. So if Davis Keeler-Dunn came onto the pitch in place of David McGoldrick, your bet would be absolutely fine and you'd still be in with a shout. And right now, Sky Bet are giving you a £1 free bet to use on Build-A-Bet for the Premier League, backed by Supersub. Sky Bet for the fans. T's and C's apply. Head to Sky Bet app for details. 18 plus, gambleware.org.
So we're going to move on now to talking about another fantastic game. This one, a 5-goal filler with Leyton Orient last gasp winners against Port Vale. It finished 3-2 in a game of two halves, really, at Vale Park, with Orient dominating the first half, Vale battling back in the second before Charlie Wellens scoring the winner. The manager's son scoring the winner. Nepotism having its exploits for Leyton Orient.
You couldn't write it, could you? Really? Yeah, absolutely. Charlie Wellens off the bench to grab the winner in there. Like you mentioned earlier, sort of in a half, the Leyton Orient weren't the better side at all. They struggled and Port Vale dominated and grabbed the equalising goal and then they'd have been happy with that. And for me, I guess sort of the biggest takeaway is it's a tale of the two strikers, the two new strikers for either side. So Don Ballard for Leyton Orient scoring just before half time to give Orient the re-establish Orient's lead just before the break. And then after the break, Devante Cole for Port Vale, again making his first appearance as well for the club after signing sort of late in the transfer window, grabbing the second goal for Port Vale to bring them level. So both strikers making their first appearances for their respective clubs, and both off the mark in their first league game as well. So that will please both of them. That will please both respective fans as well. Obviously, Don Ballard, I think, was heavily contested in terms of there are lots of League One clubs after him. And in the end, has gone with Leyton Orient, has scored on debut, which is impressive. But it is Orient, it is Richie Wellens' side that grabbed that victory in a pretty entertaining display as well. So yeah, tale of the two strikers for me. And I guess for Ballard having Connolly alongside him as well, who also was on the score sheet. Sort of that could be a partnership to watch in the future in terms of sort of giving Crouch Defoe vibes in terms of big and small, and that sort of partnership attacking wise for Orient. If they can get something going between the two of them, then I'm sure that could help Orient, because it's been a bit of a sticky start for them this season so far. But they've got victory at the weekend, and hopefully they can use that a bit of propel going forward into the league games.
Use it as a Seb Jones springboard.
Exactly
So
that. Use it as a springboard.
they're into the top half, are Leyton Orient. It's only their third win of the season. It's been a pretty turbulent summer. A lot of those players that did so well for them last season, of course, moving on in terms of transfers or just recalling from loans. But they've managed to replace them. And Connolly is someone we spoke about quite highly of during the summer. He scored his goal and then was a real key to that late winner with his run all the way up the pitch, getting on the ball first off and then managing to run towards the box, lay it off, and then the ball was obviously played to Wellens, who did the exact opposite to what sort of the manager's son does in sort of the kids' football, where he's just in the team because he's the manager's son. He's in the team because he's looking a really good talent, is Charlie Wellens, and proving his mark here with that late winner. The other side of things for Port Vale, I think there's positives to take. They're obviously still waiting for that first victory of the season. Perhaps they thought they were going to have another point here. It would have put them onto 3 points. As it stands, obviously just the 2. But they were very creative, and Devante Cole is the main talking point, isn't he, really? A goal and an assist for him. He could be the deal of deadline day, couldn't he? He came in, obviously, on September the 1st, and he's already hit the ground running. He's just proven goal scorer at League One level. You know about that, obviously. Seb, a lot more so than his time at Doncaster. His time at Barnsley was absolutely superb and earned that move up to the Championship. That didn't really work out, and now he's back in League One, and surely he's going to impress again. And we spoke a lot about the need for a goal scorer at Port Vale. They have that now, and I think really it's only a matter of time before they get that first win. Now they have someone to play towards at the top end.
Yeah, and you mentioned sort of a goal scorer, a good one at that. In his last 2 seasons at Barnsley, he scored 15 in the league and then 18 in the league, respectively. So, a man that has his pedigree in terms of goal scoring and grabbing, getting himself on the goal sheet. He'll be disappointed with sort of the move to West Brom. He moved to West Brom from Barnsley a couple of years ago, and he's sort of just been limited to sub appearances, really. So it's good to see that he has got himself a move elsewhere, especially in a league which he's comfortable in and has got proven track record of scoring in. And it's a chance for him to sort of prove himself again, really, as a goal scorer, not just be limited to substitute appearances. But yeah, he's a great player, 30 years of age, so still sort of got quite a bit ahead of him in terms of he's not one of those that sort of looking for a pay packet at the end of his career. Like, he's still got quite a few years ahead of him still, and he's still got that pace, which is sort of so crucial, really, to his gameplay, and one of his biggest asset is sort of his running that he does, and we saw that sort of evident in the goal that he took really nicely at the weekend. But yeah, great signing for Port Vale. And yeah, he'll be big for them going forward. Particularly, obviously, we spoke about Tolaj at Plymouth. Now Vale lost him, so they needed someone to replace him. And Devante Cole is a great buy, and yeah, the experience that he's already had in the league will be massive for Port Vale.
Yeah, I agree with that. On to Lincoln City then, a 2-2 draw at home to Wigan Athletic. A really topsy-turvy game. They went 1-0 down. pulled it back to 2-1. A quick-fire double from James Collins, who I alluded to it earlier, scored his 200th EFL goal and then very quickly his 201st as he passed that landmark. He's only got Billy Sharp and Jordan Rhodes ahead of him now. Of course, Rhodes retired during the week, a real quality EFL player during his day. And Callum Wright scored the equalising goal for Wigan in this one. We spoke about the dodgy penalty earlier on, so we're not going to sort of recover that ground. But 2 red cards in this game. Christian Sadie, for my money, a really shocking challenge, a straight red for him, and then Rob Street got a second yellow for a stud, for a sort of a high boot. So 2 yellow cards for him. And Lincoln, so far this season, they had 5 yellow cards in this game. They've had 21 so far in the league this season, alongside 3 red cards. So some disciplinary issues, I think, to be sorted there, perhaps. To sort of tee you up, Seb, an even second half after sort of really quite frantic first half, and Sam Tickle, that put my teeth back in, showing his quality for Mullins' goal as he sent the ball long. It was Route 1 at its finest. A really exciting game this one looked.
Yeah, certainly. I'm not quite sure the excitement levels that I expected from this one, clearly. And you mentioned Sam Tickle there, 100 on his 100th appearance for Wigan, sort of grabbing the assist, long ball forwards, sort of quality from one end of the pitch to the other end of the pitch. We know Tickle's quality in terms of shot stopping, but so showing something a little bit different in terms of the long ball forward. And then Mullin, again, another quality player, getting on the end of that one. Again, we know his quality. So for them two to be linking up, really impressive, and yeah, sort of a good way to open the scoring for Wigan. In terms of, I guess, the 2 red cards you mentioned earlier, both the players that receive red cards were both sort of attacking players, and it shows you that they should stick to attacking. I think in some of the 2 red cards that were given here, both of them really bad challenges. Really, I guess the first one from Sadie. Didn't need to do that really in terms of going in late and going in high. It might just be me, but it did take me a couple of times sort of to, I guess, when you see it in real time, you're not quite sure where the contact is, but then when you see it on replay, you think, oh, right, okay,
It
that is a
sort
red.
of to the side of the leg, wasn't it?
Yes,
So it stood. It went over the board. It was a striker's challenge, as you alluded to there. For Sadie.
And then yeah, exactly that. And then obviously Rob Street with his second yellow. I don't think that one was much better, and he's probably fortunate that he's already got the carded. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a straight red. So yeah, sort of showing that why they should stick to attacking. I think really in terms of the 2 red cards. But yeah, sort of a good value for money this one in terms of Collins quickly grabbing his. Two goals in 3 minutes, 3rd and 4th league goal of the season, respectively. When you have a player like him in your side, he's always going to bag and always going to get that goal that is needed. And then, then sort of Wigan equalised pretty early into the second half, and that was about that really. A couple of dodgy defending moments. I think Adam Jackson was a bit all over the place at times, and a bit of a concern from a Lincoln point of view, particularly with that Mullin goal. Yes, sort of Mullin took it really well, but I think Jackson did help quite a little bit. So certainly question marks over him, perhaps maybe, but yeah, a good side, and I'm sure either side will take a point and be happy with the result.
Well, Jackson was in for Sonny Bradley, who was sent off in the last game. So plenty of suspensions milling around. Yeah, definitely. Lincoln had plenty of chances, especially towards the end of the game. Some of their new signings, they brought in 4 on deadline day. They're all sort of linking up quite nicely, and they looked like they were going to get that winning goal. Didn't quite come in the end. I think a draw, probably a fair reflection of things on a pretty interesting game. And that leads us to our last one, which is Wycombe Wanderers 2-0 against Mansfield Town, and they're finally, Mike Dodds will be thinking, have their first win of the season. He said before the game, in the lead up, that there has been too much change. That has been the issue, and that is something Sam in particular, to give him his credit, but we've highlighted a lot that they've brought in a whole host of players. They did it in January and it didn't work. They've done it again this summer and it hasn't worked so far. And they've just got too many players now, and they've too many players to gel all at the same time. And Mike Dodds perhaps alluding to that. Obviously, he's never going to say that word for word, but saying there's been too much change. You read between the lines, can't you, on that? But that can all be forgotten for at least a few more days, because they have their first win, as I say, of the season. And back to basics a little bit. The first goal, it was sent forward, not quite as route one as the Sam Tickle assist, but the goalkeeper's ball forward was nodded down, and then Sam Bailey slid it home, and then a penalty, Collie Woodrow put away early on in the second half. That one will have no debate, so an absolute stonewaller of a penalty. So back to basics, and finally to winning ways for Wycombe.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll be pleased really to get off the mark. It's been sort of quite a long time coming for this one, really, in terms of a bit of pressure on Mike Dodds. We've spoke about this in terms of if results carry on as they have been, then is he going to be in the firing line? Well, actually, sort of this result on Saturday sort of eased that concern a little bit, I think. But for me, I guess we spoke about Devante Cole earlier and the impact of the striker that knows the division really well. Well, we've seen that with Colin Woodrow and Wycombe, and yes, his goal was from the penalty spot, but actually he's a player himself that's not scored since the 23-24 season when Luton were in the Premier League, and since then Luton have had back-to-back relegation, so it's been at least 2 seasons since he's scored a league game, in a league game, I beg your pardon, and then for him sort of back amongst the fold, first appearance for Wycombe after signing late on in the window, and he's grabbed his first goal of the season and first goal for a long time. Obviously, at the start of the season, back with Luton. Last year was on loan at Blackburn, but again, didn't score. So for him to get sort of good ground running straight away, I think is really good going, and he'll be he'll be a key player going forward. Again, another one of those that's played in the league before. He's got promotion out of this league before. He's played in the Premier League just a couple of seasons ago. So it's a real coup for Wycombe to have his qualities in the side. And yeah, although he scored from penalty spot, first goal of the season, always good for him to get going, and he can use that as a springboard going forward. So yeah, but in terms of the quality he brings, I think that'll be a real asset for Wycombe in terms of having that sort of focal point in their attacking options, and a player of real quality as well.
A quick word on Mansfield. They were lacking sort of the cutting edge, which they've shown quite consistently so far this season. They've been able to put away chances. Didn't have that in this game. Following up their draw against Lincoln, a 10-man Lincoln for the vast majority of that game, with defeat here. So they'll be hoping to sort of turn things around. They've got an EFL Trophy game in midweek, one of only 2 for League One sides, that is, before we're back to a full slate of fixtures next Saturday. But nothing too much to worry about, really, is it, for Mansfield?
No, I don't think so. I think they were sort of just beaten by a bit of extra quality that Mansfield just don't have at the moment, and especially Wycombe are a good side, although they've not started the season well. I think they just sort of had too much quality for them. So, but they can't be too worried about that. They've had a good start to the season overall. It's just the past couple of games they'll be disappointed with results wise. But yeah, nothing too major, I think, for Mansfield.
Yeah, they're sitting in 11th after the first 7 games of the season. So, and if they finish the season in the 11th spot, they'll be very, very happy. So,
Yeah.
Not a bad start to the season at all. 2 teams still without victory. We talked about Port Vale. The other one is Peterborough United to whip through the other results. They lost 3-2 away at Huddersfield Town. Joe Taylor missed an absolute sitter. If you haven't seen that, watch that, because it was unbelievable how good a striker he is, and missing an open net from not very far out, to say the least. But he did get a goal against his former club, a routine win in the end for Huddersfield, 3-2 there. Bolton Wanderers won 3-0 against AFC Wimbledon. The first of 2 red cards for Wimbledon is what really cost them the game, because it got away from at that point, and Bolton scored 2 in the second half to 3 goals and 3 points for them. And then Rotherham United 1-0 winners. Denzel Hall, the goal scorer, against Exeter City. There are the 8 games we had in League One over the weekend. As we said, 4 lost to the international break, but we're back to normal next weekend. Me and Seb will be here once again on the review show. So if you have enjoyed it, do remember to subscribe, to like, and comment wherever you are, if you're on YouTube or podcast platforms. All is greatly appreciated. Sam and Callum will be back in midweek for the preview show, and then same time, same place next week, myself and Seb to review another week of League One action. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.